Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers nosedive below .500 in playoff predictor simulation of the 2024 season. Predicting the Steelers' record each year doesn't require a rocket scientist. While we may not always hit it on the head, it's very easy to come within a game or two. This is largely because we know who this team is, how they are led, and what to expect. We all know that Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record since taking over as the Steelers' head coach back in 2007. But year after year, the mainstream media and oddsmakers alike assume that Pittsburgh will drop below .500, snapping their two-decade streak without a losing season. Now there is a tool for predicting NFL records and which teams will wind up in the playoffs. Sportskeeda developed an NFL playoff predictor that allows you to simulate the season and take a look at the final standings, much like you would on Madden. However, it's clear there are some kinks that need to be ironed out. I ran 10 simulations for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024. Here is their final record after each simulation using the playoff predictor. Talk about a blow to the gut. In these 10 simulations, the Pittsburgh Steelers recorded a record of at or above .500 just one time. Their lowest predicted record in a season came in my third simulation of 10 when the Sportskeeda NFL playoff predictor had the Steelers going 4-13 on the season, a record that's hard to fathom under Mike Tomlin. In these 10 simulations, the Steelers had an average record of 6.8 to 10.2. Let that sink in for a moment. Pittsburgh averaged double-digit losses in 10 simulations. The seventh simulated season was the only one in which the Steelers earned a winning record. It was also the only season that Pittsburgh recorded a positive point differential and did not finish last in the AFC North. Take this with a grain of salt. Yes, the Steelers have one of the toughest schedules in the league on paper, and they are not guaranteed to finish with a 10-win season like they did last year. But even if things don't go their way, it's absurd to think that they will be good for 6 to 7 wins in 2024. When you look at the roster on paper, the Steelers have improved at nearly every position. Omar Khan beefed up the offensive line in the NFL draft and added a pair of talented linebackers in Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson. Most importantly, the Steelers are finally free of a despicable Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett combination that resulted in one of the league's worst offenses over the past 2 seasons. The collection of OC Arthur Smith and QBs Russell Wilson and Justin Fields should prove to be far more than what they've had. Because their schedule is so brutal in 2024, I can envision a scenario where the streak of non-losing seasons is snapped this year. However, predicting the Pittsburgh Steelers to suddenly plummet well below .500 when they haven't had a losing record in 20 years is complete malpractice. Steelers add another former Falcons player, report. The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed another former Atlanta Falcons player, this time on defense. Steelers Depot's Alex Kozora wrote on June 21 that the Steelers claimed defensive tackle Willington Prevalin off waivers. The Steelers reported the move on the NFL transaction sheet. Prior to adding Prevalin, the Steelers had already acquired 4 notable former Falcons players this offseason, all on offense. But unlike those 4 players, Prevalin never played for former Atlanta head coach Arthur Smith. The Falcons signed Prevalin to a reserve/future contract on January 10. Atlanta fired Smith, who is the new Steelers offensive coordinator, 2 days prior. Undrafted in 2020, Prevalin experienced stints with the Green Bay Packers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Dallas Cowboys during his first 4 NFL seasons. But he's never appeared in a regular season game. With the addition to Prevalin, the Steelers have a full offseason roster again and added depth to the interior of their defensive line. Prevalin played college football at Rutgers, where he posted 71 total tackles, including 11.5 tackles for loss, in his career. He also had 4 sacks and 3 pass defenses. He registered 35 of those tackles, including 7.5 for loss and 1 sack during his senior season. Standing at 287 pounds during his draft process, Pro Football Network's Tony Pauline called Prevalent undersized but also labeled him as explosive and a player who had shown versatility. Prevalent has nice length and growth potential and great athleticism, Pauline wrote on March 30, 2020. He's still rough around the edges after he was moved around on the defensive line at Rutgers, but he comes with upside and should receive practice squad consideration. Prevalent is joining a Steelers roster which already had 8 defensive tackles. The official Steelers roster, though, lists veterans such as Cameron Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi as defensive tackles, but they essentially split their 2023 snaps between defensive tackle and defensive end. The 4 notable Falcons the Steelers signed this offseason were kick returner and running back Cordarrelle Patterson, wide receivers Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller, and tight end Michael Pruitt. All 4 of those players are familiar with Smith's playbook. Brandon Aiyuk trade just seems like a long shot at this point for Steelers, Kabylie says. The Brandon Aiyuk talk seems to travel in a cycle around the Pittsburgh Steelers. While there haven't been reports of any tangible movement in months, the topic still finds its way into the ether. The current tenor of the conversation is a plea for patience, just give it time, and perhaps they swing it. But it doesn't feel as though passing time makes it any more likely, even to those who have reported on it. To me, it just seems like a long shot, The Athletic's Mark Kabylie said on the PM team on 93.7 The Fan regarding the possibility of the Steelers still trading for Aiyuk. However, I would never count out Omar Khan about anything. I just wouldn't right now. He knows that they need something. I know they love how their receivers did in that setting. He came out and said that they really loved how they performed. The they in discussion is the Steelers' wide receivers, largely a hodgepodge of veteran castoffs. While George Pickens is George Pickens and Calvin Austin III is getting good reviews, the rest of the group inspires little enthusiasm. Adding Aiyuk to the mix would make a world of difference. A 2020 first-round draft pick, Brandon Aiyuk has spent his entire career with the San Francisco 49ers. Playing in largely a run-first offense, he has caught 269 passes for 3,931 yards and 25 touchdowns in his career. He earned second-team All-Pro honors in 2023 after catching 75 passes for 1,342 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now set to play under the 5th-year option, Aiyuk has flirted with his potential trade market. The 49ers may have permitted him to explore trade options. Reportedly, the Steelers nearly had a trade in place for either Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel during the draft that didn't pan out. Pairing Pickens with Aiyuk would take this offense to another level for the 2024 season. But at some point soon, you'll have to pick one or the other. And if you're picking one, you're picking Aiyuk because you don't acquire him without a contract you can't escape. Still, Kabylie remains among those who believe the Steelers must add another receiver. They are quite happy with what they have. But that doesn't mean they're not gonna upgrade, he said, though it doesn't have to be Aiyuk. They need someone to, in my opinion, stand out. Is Van Jefferson going to stand out, or Quez Watkins, perhaps? What about Scotty Miller or even the aforementioned Austin? Can any of them, or even all of them combined, equal the impact of Brandon Aiyuk? I'm not about to bet on that happening. But I'm not sure I buy this notion that the Steelers just have to wait the 49ers out. Yes, they have an abundance of wide receivers after drafting Ricky Pearsall and extending Jawan Jennings. But they want to win the Super Bowl this year, and the year after that, and the year after. And Aiyuk is a 26-year-old rising star who can transition into an even bigger role if the offense leans more on the passing game in the future. He is a guy to build around, and you don't give that away based on the promise of a rookie. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.